All right, it is that magic time. So let's go ahead and get started today. Hello, everybody. I am Deedy Camarena. I'm a coordinator for ELD Dual and World Languages at the Santa Clara County Office of Education. And I also have Gina here as well. Sorry, Jenna. Jenna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jenna Picata, and I'm an academic technology specialist. And I am just here to be Deedy's co-host. I mean, this is super exciting because you did a great job getting the word out about this webinar, because right now this is the most people that we have in here live watching the webinar. So I want to just thank everybody for joining in today. This is exciting. So if you do have a question, I will be looking at the chat, and I will also be looking at the participants box. So for those of you who are out there, you might see participants as an option in the bottom of your Zoom. If you click on that and you want to raise your hand, I'll also be looking at that too. So you can type in the chat or you can raise your hand, and then Deedy, if you don't mind, when you're going through, I might pause you every once in a while if there's something.
Yes, please do. I actually do not have my chat box up because I know you're here, so that would be really helpful. So thank you. All right, so let's just begin with just having you all respond to one of these questions that are in the box, just to check in to see where your mind is at in our state of distant learning. And as you see by the last question, with your ELs, where are you at with that and what are you doing? So just go ahead and if you feel like it, answer one of those and put that in that chat box. And then Jenna, if anything interesting comes up, which I'm sure they all will be, you can just throw them out there.
Sure.
And of course, if anybody wants to just unmute and go ahead and just say it, then you can do that as well.
Okay, let's see. We are researching best practices for distance learning, worried for students who don't have devices yet. So hashtag digital divide. There are people who are super excited to be here with you or with us. And let's see, wondering if students are checking in not only to, I lost it, not only to ELD support classes, but how, everything's jumping. But how they're doing accessing core content areas on their own.
Okay, that's good as well.
Yeah, let's see. Making sure all students get the message that we're actually expecting them to do school. And that they have the resources to do school. A lot of concerns about equity and how parents can support. Let's see. Have had great success with individual Zoom lessons with those who have devices. So, and then Abby says, I just heard on a show, lead with love, not with lessons.
I like that.
I'm wondering how schools are keeping this notion at the center.
That actually is a great segue into the next slide. So let me go ahead and continue with that. So we always start off with tips. So we're going to have 3 separate tips that you'll hear throughout this webinar today. And all of them are going to be surrounding, obviously, supporting your English learners. So some of the tips you might already know. Some of the tips you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. That's right, I can do that. One of the ones I want to mention right now, which I heard from one of our former beloved technology specialists, is what I believe you see at the bottom of the screen. As I'm talking, the text is coming up on the bottom. And that was just awesome, because when we're speaking, sometimes it's easier to look at what they're saying, especially if it's in a different language. So that was a game changer for me and an accessibility option for you if you happen also to be using slides, Zoom as we're in as well. So the first one you see on the screen is just the importance of having a phone call to your students, just making that connection. And that's going back to what Abby was saying, is you're leading with love and you want to just check in on them and see how they're doing. And a phone call can be an amazing thing for them to receive, considering that they might be isolated, they might not have that technology. So being able to speak to your student on the phone is invaluable. And additionally, also speaking with your parents that are there. Maybe they have some questions, and maybe, again, media isn't necessarily at their fingertips, but they have a phone. So checking in with them might be a great way to be able to do that as well. One way to do that is by utilizing the app Talking Points. I found it on Twitter and it has just exploded, and I believe there are many people that are using Talking Points. It's so easy in that it's a direct messaging system via text, and I can type in English, but I have programmed already the different languages of the parents or the students that I'll be sending the message to. And if their native language, let's say, is Korean, then I'll write it in English and it shows up on my student's phone in Korean. And then the student can type back in Korean, but on my end, it shows up in English. And I just thought that that was a great accessibility app just to get a hold of or speak with students and parents. So in the show notes, you will see links to those as well, in addition to a guide for parents. Additionally, you can go ahead and look at how you can support your students when you're touching base with them. So for example, maybe just sending them an easy Google form. It's something that I've seen, just checking in on their students. How are you feeling? How is your workload? Do you feel like you're receiving too much, too little work? What do you need support with? And it's just checking in with them. It's just an easy way to gather some information about your students. Additionally, just really honing in on what are those social emotional needs with them. Because if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we know the very base level is shelter, is food, and our families are in so many different circumstances right now that it would be great to check in about those. And are they struggling in some way or another, and what resources can you provide to them? Because as we know, they can't concentrate on their academics if they don't have those first couple of tiers according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs in place. So just keeping that in mind as well. The next one we have is about the internet. I'm sure you've heard of many different internet companies offering reduced or free internet. One of them is called Internet Essentials. Although it's a great way to receive free internet, I do hear it's about a 3-week wait now in order to get that set up. And if you want to venture out, some of our families are taking walks. There's many public libraries and schools that are also keeping their Wi-Fi open. So you can go into those parking lots, especially if you're in a car, so you're enclosed, keeping your social distancing and being able to hook up to that if you did need some other free information as well. The last one that we have on here is about choosing a communication platform. I've seen so many educators using Seesaw for that reason, in addition to Google Classroom, and those seem to be the most popular. And obviously what we're on right now, and having Zoom. I would suggest checking in with your school district, because maybe there's some that they prefer versus some they don't. I do know there are some school districts that are deciding that Zoom isn't a good platform to communicate with students. However, it's great for us as educators and being able to communicate with that. So there's links to those again in the show notes that you'll be able to access. And in addition, there's some bonus information that goes with that I've added to the show notes as well. Some tips for you to consider when you're looking at those. So as I go on to our next slide, some food for thought with you, I thought I'd reach over to Jenna to see if there's any questions or comments that come up that you think would be something that we could share.
Sure. I mean, since there are a good amount of people, wow, there's in this webinar right now, if you want to raise your hand and because I can't see everybody in my grid, but I can take a look at who's raising their hand. If you have answer to this question, what's a way that you can connect with your students and families, go ahead and raise your hand and I will call on you. And then in the meantime, Efren had put in the chat a link to everyoneon.org. And so that's another resource that you might want to check out.
And to clarify, on.org is for internet, Efrain?
Yes. Hi, everyone. This is Efren Tolar from Selma, near Fresno. Everyoneon.org is a national nonprofit that's working with ISPs across the nation. So if you just type in your zip code, it'll give you a list of different ISPs that's providing low-cost internet, especially for those educators that are living out in the rural communities. We know it's a huge digital divide. There are companies out there that are willing and able to provide low-cost mobile hotspots to families.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Deedy.
Does anybody else have anything that they want to share? I mean, if you do want to if it's easier just to turn your microphone on and jump in with a comment, you can do that as well. One thing that I heard and that I shared yesterday with the math team was that some teachers are getting phone numbers through Google Voice because they don't want to share their personal number. So I thought that was a good idea.
And you guys are doing great in segueing into the next slide. So thank you for that, Jenna. All right, as we're moving on to our next one, tip number 2 is about providing comprehensible input. And there's some oldies but goodies and some little things that you can do to make a difference for your students when you're trying to make it comprehensible to them. The first and foremost, as we do in our classes every day, is model, model, model. There's so many different resources you can use to videotape yourself in order to model with what you're doing. One of them being Screencastify. That one I've seen utilized quite often, and it's super easy to be able to use. And as we're doing with this one, you can also do a video and either live stream on YouTube or upload it. There are some schools and districts that actually have YouTube channels, so you can go ahead and do that as well. Another little thing that you can do is just providing those visuals. We know for our English learners, especially our newcomers, that providing those visuals and steps in what you can do can go a long, long way. I know that some of you are really into sketchnoting, Jenna being one of them. She's absolutely fabulous at it. And there's so many that are out there that are on Twitter that I found as well. And just giving them a different way to access that information. Also, when you're presenting with your students, or maybe you're doing a video or it's live, keeping in mind that you want to maybe bring up the transitions, meaning, oh, now I'm going to be doing X, but tomorrow we're going to be working on Z. So you may want to check out 1, 2, and 3. So just giving them a heads up so they're not caught off guard and they're not able to participate in the way that they would like. Some other little things are consistent formatting. So for example, if you are having a document that you're sharing and it's for reading, maybe using that same format for all your reading docs, just so students can concentrate on the content and not have to worry about finding things in the document. And when you do that, that lends itself to repetition. You're repeating that particular document, or maybe you're going to be repeating a skill. It can go for both. And then an oldie but goodie, again, a little thing, is chunking that information. So if you have a lesson that you do one day in the classroom, it may take you 3 or 4 days to be able to do online, because as we learned that we do have a delay, or it's taking us a longer amount of time to get out the information via online versus in the classroom. So chunking it in ways that you do one little part at a time, adding images, maybe an interaction that goes in there, or technology to use. To jump in with digital tools, as Jenna mentioned, we do have Google Voice, which is great. And when you have a Google account, there's so many free different things that you can do on there. We also have Google Translate. As I know we all know, it's gotten much better, so you may want to tap into that as well. As you see what I've been doing, and I mentioned earlier, we have the captions at the bottom of the screen, so you can hear what I'm saying as well. There's also an extension called Read Aloud on for Chrome, and it will read aloud anything on your screen. So that may be important for students in order to be getting input or practicing their listening skills. You can use that as well. And then I also found a great one called the LORAD Google Chrome extension. And what it will do is it will videotape anything that you're doing, and then you can load it up into a platform and you can utilize it, for example, of a step-by-step process on how to do something. So if you're clicking on a certain app and how to set it up, how to install it, or something your students might need, you do it on your screen and you've already allowed Laura to jump in there and it will record it and automatically break it down into steps. That was a new one I found that seemed to work really, really well. However, I don't know of anybody that's used it. So if any of you had, that'd be great to hear from you. And the last one that you can utilize for comprehensible input would be allowing for individual choice and autonomy. And this comes straight from the Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, and allowing them that choice in order to address the variability of the learners. So you may want to be able to do different, obviously, types of lessons that you're doing for UDL, and making sure of keeping the variability of your learners in mind when you are doing those lessons. And I know there's a handful of us here at the county office that have been diving deep into that. So if any of you are on this call and want to jump in, that would be awesome. The number one thing I think of in order to address that are choice boards and allowing them to choose the options that they would like to do. I know there's a handful of people out there already doing that as well. Within the show notes, you'll see different options for choice boards that I've put on there. For example, I'll have one for ELA, math, science. I went on there a language choice board, and it's actually a video to something I found just this morning on Twitter. And I'm going to be actually expanding that more in another webinar. And then I also didn't want to forget your options for those students who don't have internet connectivity. So there'll be an option for what you can do for a paper and pencil resources. We have 2 school districts around us that have this on their web pages. So I included the links to those as well, because we need to make sure we're really looking into equity when we're doing this distance learning. And it's even more challenging now, but something that I know is on the forefront of all of our minds, and how are we going to provide that equity? All right, I want to pause, bring up our next slide, and then go back to Jenna to see if anything interesting came in that chat. If any of you would like to put any of your responses to our new food for thought into the chat box. What tools do you use to provide comprehensible input? Or of course, you may unmute yourself and speak to all of us here.
Yeah, so let me see. So Abby put in the chat that Flipgrid just announced that they're allowing screen casting capabilities. So yeah, so that's a new feature in Flipgrid. And then Efren also shared with us that if you want the full version of Screencastify, he put in the code for that full version. It's cast_COVID. So check the chat for that if you want to try to get the full version, because I believe the free version, I've never really thought that I needed anything more than that. But I think the limit there is like 5 minutes, so it would definitely be nice to have a full version. I have a question about, is it possible to get a recording? Yes, and at the end of her presentation, she will show a link to where you can find all of the archived webinars that we have, and then you'll see some of the upcoming ones too. So let's see. So Efren is saying rewordify.com. I'm not familiar with that one.
Can you share that with us, Efren?
Yes, Rewordify. I use that to provide comprehensible input for my newcomers as well as my level 2s. Basically, it's a powerful free online software that improves reading, learning, and teaching by, making some difficult text accessible. It'll highlight key academic words that might be difficult for some students and rewordify those words into a simpler vocabulary word. So, but they still have access to the academic word. So play with it. It's a great resource. It's free. I use it a lot.
Thank you so much for explaining that for us. Anybody else would like to share at this time?
Sorry, could Ephraim mention that resource again one more time?
Yes, it's rewordify.com. It's a website. I posted the link inside the chat room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go to the slide that took me the most amount of time because I just went on a bird walk and just went down all these different holes because there are so many different resources out there that we have in order to support our English learners in the classroom. So I decided to put them into buckets. As you see, I have some suggestions for newcomers or your LPAC level 1s, for expanding the ELD standards, or what we consider LPAC levels 2 and 3, and bridging your LPACs level 4. And as we know, some of your higher 3s could also be utilize the ones for your LPAC 4s as well. So one tip actually I've learned in the past couple weeks is when you are using this new digital online platform, you may want to consider assigning a tech buddy for each of your students. So there might be, you might have a newcomer that's only been here for a couple months and they haven't been exposed to as much technology or resources as somebody else in the classroom. So you may want to assign them a tech buddy in order for the students to be comfortable with each other and reach out to each other in order to get some answers to some of their questions or just to support them and how they're doing. A lot of us have office hours that we're also implementing too, and they could reach out to you. But it's always nice for them to have somebody, one of their peers, to be a buddy with them. So that's just a little something I wanted to throw in there. So for newcomers, my new favorite app, which is not a new app, but one I love and it's perfect for your newcomers, is our BrainPop ELL. I just had a field day just going through all the different things that they have to go with each story. I liked the pace that they had for our newcomer English learners. It was really simple, lots of visuals, lots of talking, lots of different ways for them to access that language. They also have BrainPop Espanol. So if you're in a dual language setting, or if your newcomer hasn't quite acquired English enough in order to do BrainPop ELL, you might want to utilize that for them as well. Another one for newcomers, it's called ELL 2.0, and I want to share with you what that is. I have a bar that's getting in the way, so excuse me as I find it. The bar keeps dropping down up above. Let's see what this one is. That is not it. Let's try this again. There it is. All right, so this is the website, again, ELL 2.0. And as we're going over here on the left.
Wait, can I pause you just for a second? Because
Yes.
you just got yourself out of screen share. So.
Oh, I did? Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Let's try to figure that out again. Let's try this again. There it is. Thank you. All right, are we better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the website, ELL 2.0, and I go to it for many things. It's by two amazing English learner educators, and they compiled this list of so many different things. The ones that I came across, in addition to newcomer resources, is they have one, they're both at the bottom. One is called Vocabulary Strategies. And when you come here, and it is not scrolling down for me. Of course it doesn't work how you want, does it? Well, let me pop back into that one and see if our other one is working for us today. The joys of technology. All right, so let's go to this one. It's called the translation tool. This one is fabulous for those of you that have different languages in your classroom. And when you get here, if you look at the bottom down here, you click in order for you to have your own copy of it. So each person will have their each individual one. And so I've clicked here to make a copy. So as you see, it says here copied. And when you put in any word here, let's do couch. I click and it pre-populates with all the different languages that are in your classroom or the ones that you've chosen for that particular word. So it's something that you can do if you want to have it as a resource of something you have already prepared for students in accordance with the story maybe you're going through, or each individual student can utilize it in a different way. So I loved that resource because it's already pre-populated for you. There are different languages you can put up here, and that will, when we go back to the actual website, down here it says language codes, and there's a short video that shows you how to do that. So you can put in other languages that you may not already have. All right, so let me see if this other one comes up real quick. All right, we'll have to go back to that one because for today, it's not what I remembered before. They might have changed it. Okay. All right, going back to this, now we have expanding some resources I have for that. So the first one I found, it's called Randall's ESL Cyber Listening Lab. And as it mentions, it is one specifically in order to practice listening. I like it because it's easy to use, it's easy, the manipulations that are on it are really easy to figure out. It's not brain science, so I really, really enjoyed it for that reason as well. They have videos with answers, with questions. They have extended learning as well, and they have a transcript that goes with that. They have different vocabulary quizzes on there because they will be watching a video and listening, depending on which one you choose. Also, I also enjoyed ESL video for our expanding students. And ESL video, it's one of those where, yes, you watch the video as it mentions, and additionally, you can have activities like filling in the blank, but it's also breaks it down for beginning, lower intermediate, intermediate students, higher intermediate, and advanced, so you can pick the level your students are at. They also have printable lessons, so if your students don't have access to technology, you can go ahead and download the printable lesson. You can use Cami, for example, and you can go ahead and mark on it and write it up before you give it to your students, or use Cami also in order to point things out on the document if you're doing it virtually. And then the last one I have is for our bridging or our level 3s and 4s. Another great website that I found is called Flowcabulary, and that one I thought was great. Let me go ahead and bring it up for you, because it's one of those, and can we still see that, Jenna? Did it come up this time? Yes, okay. And it's one of those ones where it's using real life types of interactions that are with it. And so I thought it was really appropriate for your middle and high school students going into that. It also offers different speeds that you can play the video. So you can do it at a regular speed or slow, or they even have a slowest. And it doesn't sound funny when you change it to that. So I really enjoyed that in order to have listening comprehension as well. They also have vocabulary cards that go with it, a game. They have a read and respond activity in addition to a quiz. You can also download every single one of those. So I enjoyed that as well. Again, for those of us that don't have internet access, for those students that don't have internet access at home. So that is what that website looks like from there. Did I go back to screen sharing appropriately this time, Jenna?
Yes, you did.
Great, okay. And so the last one I have for your Bridging or LPAC 4s, it's called Breaking News English. Now, I have to warn you, although I like what is on this site, it isn't as friendly as the other one. So it might be one where you take the information that's on there and you copy paste it into another document to make it a little bit more accessible for your students. So just keep that in mind when you're going to it. It has great resources. It has lesson plans. It has a mini lesson plan that goes with that. The lesson plans are really extensive. You get lots of information for that. It also has a table of contents in that lesson plan, so you can go to what you need to get out of that. And then they have categories for each story that you will find on there. So if you want something about science, you can just go to that part. And with those stories, you can print it out, you can listen to it, you can read it. There's grammar activities that go with it, in addition to spelling that goes with it. So a lot of different capabilities to support your English learners. So I see I accidentally clicked to the next slide. So a lot of information to digest. Again, all of that will be in the show notes for you. So for our last food for thought, how do you ensure your ELs are receiving designated ELD at this time? What are some things that you're trying to do? Again, you can do the chat box, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and talk to us.
Well, we did get some links to some resources. So Bernadette shared a Padlet. And so anything that's put in this chat, I just want to let you know that I will take that and then we can put that into the show notes. Efren also shared a template for vocabulary, and that one was really good. So that's what I'm seeing in the chat right now.
And that's what I love about that chat feature. You guys get to definitely share all those different resources that you have out there with each other. And so hopefully you'll get something new out of that.
Yeah, and then Teresa just said, helping teachers in my district design designated ELD choice boards for all grade levels that are low or no tech.
It's a great option too. There is something that I put in the show notes, which is a link to some of those as well. So you'll be able to see those. Again, too much information to give you today, so I put some more definitely in the show notes for you.
Yeah, and then we have Rafa saying, setting Zoom video with groups of students by levels of language proficiency for designated ELD time.
Mm-hmm. It's a great idea. And in Zoom, they have the breakout rooms as well that you could do that. Or, as we were mentioning, you can do different times, different office hours that you have for them too.
And then Angelica says, trying to embed the ELD standards that align to the tasks by including language features or sentence structures, specifically part 2.
Mm-hmm. Right, I found myself going back to those ELD standards and looking at those for the grade levels in order to design some choice boards specifically for designated ELD. So it's really going to get us familiar yet again with those ELD standards and what our students are expected to be able to do / what we can push them to do to get to that next level, considering we do not have summative LPAC this year. Therefore, we really got to make sure that we're providing those opportunities. Okay, all right. So for this last one you see here, just wanted to let you know that again, those show notes will be there for you. It's all through the website that I believe Jenna and Abby got started for us. And then as you see on this page, there is also a link to the vlog series that we mentioned that has a recording of all the webinars that we've done thus far, in addition to the show notes on the slide. And then also there'll be in there a link to YouTube that they're going to be putting on as well. And then we just wanted to let you know about office hours if anybody needs any support. So this one is specifically for my department, multilingual and humanities education. You'll notice on here it says it's Monday through Friday, 3 to 3:30. We will be starting that next week. And there is the Zoom link for you. Anybody can hop on that if you just need support with anything at all. If we can't answer your question, we'll make sure that we get it to the appropriate content specialist and coordinator, and therefore somebody else may be reaching out to help you answer that question. And then our next webinar, and Jenna and Abby can confirm this for me.
So,
Jenna, it looks
yeah.
like it's you. Is that correct?
Well, I'm going to make one correction that because we have some other things going on tomorrow, and we're going into a special ed webinar tomorrow. We are moving accessibility to Friday at 11 a.m.
Okay,
So
thank you.
information about all of our upcoming webinars are on that page. I think Abby put the link in the chat, and then it's also linked in your presentation. So that is the one correction. So
All right.
Friday, 11
Thank you.
a.m.
Things change on an hourly basis, I
Yeah.
feel like, so that's good to know. Thank you. And then, of course, we just wanted to say thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to have you all with us. Again, you have Jenna and my information there in order for contact. As you see, I'm on Twitter as well. Jenna, are you on Twitter?
Yes, I am. I'll add my information to the slide. So.
Well, thank you all so much. It was great spending the past 30 minutes with you. I hope at least you got a little tidbit, whether it was through the chat or something I presented today. So thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day today. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.